Picture this. You wake up in the morning, and before you've even had your first sip of coffee, your mind is already racing. You check your phone notifications, emails, messages, and then it begins. That quiet but constant voice asking, what will people think if I don't reply right away? What will they say if I fail? What if I don't measure up? It's exhausting, isn't it? Living like you're on stage every single day, performing for an audience that never really stops to applaud. You're smiling, nodding, pleasing everyone around you, yet deep inside, you feel caged, weighed down by opinions that don't even belong to you. Now imagine the opposite for just a moment. Imagine walking into a room without that heavy armor of fear. Imagine living without the constant burden of judgment. No more needing someone else's approval to feel good about yourself. Instead, you're anchored calm, grounded, unshakable. Sounds almost impossible, right? But here's the thing. This freedom doesn't come from changing the world around you. It comes from shifting the focus inward. This is exactly what the Buddha taught. True peace doesn't begin when others finally accept you. It begins the moment you stop chasing their approval and start listening to yourself. Think about it. How much of your energy is spent worrying about what others think? How many decisions in your life were made not because they were right for you, but because you feared rejection? I'll be honest. There was a time in my own life when I couldn't even say no without feeling guilty. I was constantly trying to please everyone until I realized I was losing myself in the process. And I can tell you this, the moment I learned to shift my focus back to my own path, everything changed. Here's the paradox. The more you chase people's validation, the emptier you feel. But the more you ground yourself in your own inner peace, the more authentic connections you actually build. Because people aren't really drawn to perfection, they're drawn to truth. The Buddha said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." Those words are simple, but they carry a freedom most of us have forgotten. You don't need the world's permission slip to be happy. The permission has to come from you. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if, starting today, you stopped letting rejection define you? What if the opinions of others no longer held the steering wheel of your destiny? What if your calm, your strength, your choices came from within? Stay with me, because in this video, we're going to explore how Buddhist wisdom can help you break free from the noise, stop depending on others for your happiness, and finally reclaim the power that has always been yours. And here's the part you don't want to miss. At the end of this video, I'll share with you a little-known technique, something so simple yet so profound that it could completely change the way you see yourself and the way you live your life. 1. Don't let comparison steal your joy. Picture this. You're scrolling through your phone late at night. Everyone else seems to have it figured out, the perfect job, the perfect relationship, the perfect smile captured in perfect lighting. And suddenly, without even realizing it, you feel smaller, less successful, less worthy. I know that feeling, because I've been there too. And maybe, just maybe, you're living it right now. Comparison is a silent thief. It doesn't knock on your door. It doesn't announce itself. It quietly slips into your mind, and before you know it, joy has already left the room. The Buddha once said, "Do not overestimate what you have received, nor envy others. He who envies others does not obtain peace of mind." Think about that. Peace is impossible when envy is in control. Let me tell you about Anna, a friend of mine. She was a talented artist, but she could never enjoy her own progress. Every time she painted something beautiful, she would immediately look at Instagram, compare her work to others, and feel like a failure. One day, she told me, "I feel like I'm always running in a race I can never win." Have you ever felt that way? Like no matter how hard you try, there's always someone ahead of you? Here's the truth. Life was never meant to be a race. Your path is your own. And when you constantly measure it against someone else's buy, you rob yourself of the very joy of walking it. The Buddha taught that true happiness comes not from having more than others, but from appreciating what you already have. Gratitude is the antidote to comparison. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, "Why don't I have what they have?" Pause. Ask yourself, "But what do I already have that is precious?" Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's simply the breath you're taking right now. These are gifts too easily overlooked when our eyes are fixed on someone else's life. And here's the powerful shift. When you stop comparing, you start living. Your journey stops being about beating others and starts being about becoming your true self. Imagine the freedom of waking up every morning and saying, "I am enough. My life is my own." That's when confidence grows naturally. That's when peace returns. So remember this, comparison will always whisper, "You're not enough." But gratitude will always answer, "Yes, I am." 2. Understand that others are also busy with their own lives. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like every single eye was on you? Like people were silently judging the way you looked, the way you spoke, the way you carried yourself? It's uncomfortable, right? It makes you shrink, makes you second guess, makes you feel like you're living under a spotlight. But here's the truth that most of us forget. Everyone else is far too busy worrying about their own lives to spend all that energy judging yours. Let me tell you about David. He used to avoid going to the gym. He said, "I feel like people are staring at me, noticing how weak I am, how out of shape I look." But one day, his trainer asked him to really look around the room. What did he see? A young man was checking his phone between sets. A woman was lost in her headphones, focused only on her own reps. An older gentleman was catching his breath, eyes closed, not caring who came or went. Nobody was watching David. They were all busy living in their own little bubbles. Isn't that what life is like? We carry this heavy weight of imagined judgment, when in reality, most people are just trying to get through their day. The Buddha once taught, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say, "You deserve everyone else's approval." He said, "You deserve your own." Think about how much freedom that brings. When you stop living for the approval of others, you finally start living for yourself. You can wear what makes you comfortable. You can pursue the work that fulfills you, even if it looks different from someone else's definition of success. You can speak your truth without the fear of being silenced by invisible critics. And here's a little reminder I keep close to my heart. People are not replaying your mistakes at night the way you think they are. They are too busy replaying their own. That harsh word you said, that awkward moment you can't stop cringing about others, have probably forgotten it hours ago. But you've been punishing yourself for weeks. So ask yourself this: what would your life look like if you finally believed that the world isn't watching your every move? Would you take more risks? Would you laugh louder? Would you finally feel the joy of just being yourself? Because when you realize that most people are too busy dealing with their own challenges, you stop living like you're on stage. You step off the imaginary spotlight, and you discover a kind of peace that feels like coming home. So remember, freedom doesn't come from everyone liking you. Freedom comes from no longer needing them to. 3. Stop depending on others to find your happiness. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt amazing about yourself until someone said nothing? You posted a picture. No likes. You did something kind at work. No one noticed. And suddenly, that spark of joy you had just disappeared. That's what happens when our happiness is built on other people's approval. It feels good in the moment, but it's fragile. One word, or even silence, can take it all away. I once knew a man named Michael. On the outside, he seemed confident, but inside, he was constantly chasing praise. If his boss complimented him, he felt on top of the world. If a friend forgot to reply to his text, he spiraled into self-doubt. His entire emotional state was in the hands of everyone around him. He told me, "I feel like I'm on a roller coaster. I don't control." Can you relate to that? That exhausting rise and fall, depending on what people think or don't think about you? The Buddha gave us a powerful reminder. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. It's simple, but it changes everything. Because if your happiness depends on someone else's reaction, you'll always be a prisoner to their moods, their attention, their approval. But if it's rooted inside you, nothing can shake it. Think of a tree. A tree with shallow roots can be blown over by a strong wind, but a tree with deep roots stands tall no matter the storm. Your inner peace is those roots. The deeper they go, the less the outside world can topple you. So how do we grow those roots? By learning to validate ourselves, by choosing gratitude before waiting for recognition, by reminding ourselves, I am worthy, even if no one says it out loud. When you clap for yourself, you no longer depend on the applause of others. Here's a small practice I use. At the end of the day, instead of asking, did anyone notice me? I ask, did I notice myself? Did I act with kindness? Did I stay true to my values? Did I make even one choice today that brought peace instead of chaos? And when the answer is yes, I let that be enough. Because the truth is, the world may never fully see or appreciate your efforts. But that doesn't mean they lack value. And it doesn't mean you lack worth. Happiness that depends on others will always feel temporary. But happiness that grows within you, it lasts. So remember this. Stop outsourcing your joy. Bring it home. Because the moment you no longer need permission to be happy, you are free. 4. Don't let rejection define you. Rejection. It's a word that cuts deeper than we like to admit. A job you didn't get. A relationship that ended before you were ready. A dream that slipped through your hands. And in those moments, it feels like the world is saying, you're not good enough. I want to tell you about Sarah. She applied for her dream job 3 times. Each time, she got the same cold email. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. She told me every rejection felt like a stamp on my forehead, like proof that I wasn't worthy. Her confidence crumbled. She stopped applying altogether. Not because she wasn't qualified, but because she let rejection define her. Have you ever done that? Taken one no and turned it into a story about your entire worth? It's a painful trap. And yet, it's one so many of us live in. The Buddha offered wisdom here. He said, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Notice the power in that. Your value isn't measured by someone else's opinion or by the doors they close. Your value is already within you. Rejection, when seen differently, is not the end. It's redirection. Sarah eventually realized this. A year later, she found another opportunity, not the one she thought she wanted, but one that gave her freedom, balance, and joy she hadn't imagined possible. Looking back, she said, those rejections were blessings. They pushed me toward a better path. And isn't that the truth? Every no clears space for a better yes. But only if we don't let rejection turn into self-rejection. When you carry it with bitterness, it closes your heart. But when you carry it with peace, it opens new doors. So the next time you face rejection, pause. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? Ask, what might this be making room for? That shift changes everything. Because rejection doesn't define you. It refines you. It teaches resilience. It reveals new directions. And most of all, it reminds you that your worth has never been up for debate. So hold this close. Rejection is not the final word. It's simply part of the sentence of your story. And sometimes, it's the very thing that leads you to the chapter you were always meant to live. 5. Don't sacrifice your peace to please others. Have you ever caught yourself bending over backward just to keep everyone around you happy? Maybe you said yes when deep down, every part of you wanted to say no. Or maybe you stayed silent, even when your heart was screaming for you to speak up just because you didn't want to disappoint someone. I know that feeling. It's heavy. It's draining. And in the end, it doesn't really bring peace. We live in a world that constantly tells us, be agreeable, be likable, don't upset anyone. And for a while you might think, if I can keep everyone else happy, then maybe I'll finally feel at peace. But here's the truth. The more we try to please everyone, the more we lose touch with ourselves. We end up carrying other people's expectations while quietly abandoning our own well-being. The Buddha once taught, peace comes from within, do not seek it without. Think about that for a moment. If peace is something we try to buy with constant approval, it will never last. Because the moment someone criticizes us, disagrees with us, or rejects us, that fragile sense of peace shatters. But when peace is rooted inside, when it comes from knowing our own worth, our own values, our own boundaries, then it cannot be taken away so easily. Let me share this. A close friend of mine used to be the yes person. She was the one everyone could rely on, always saying yes to extra work, always helping friends late into the night, always putting her needs last. People loved her for it. But inside, she was exhausted. Her health began to suffer. She lost sleep. And slowly, she started to feel resentment toward the very people she was trying to please. It wasn't until she began setting boundaries, saying no when she needed to, protecting her own quiet time, that she finally felt lighter. And something surprising happened. Instead of people rejecting her, many began to respect her more. Because true compassion doesn't come from burning ourselves out. It comes from balance. The Buddha's teachings remind us that compassion without wisdom is incomplete. Yes, it is beautiful to care for others. But wisdom tells us that we must also care for ourselves. So here's a question worth asking yourself. How many times in my life have I traded away my inner peace just so someone else wouldn't be upset with me? And even more important, was it worth it? What I've learned, and maybe you felt this too, is that when I guard my peace, when I say no with kindness, when I choose honesty over people-pleasing, something shifts. My energy becomes cleaner. My presence feels lighter. And the people around me, they actually benefit more because I'm not showing up drained or resentful. I'm showing up whole. Remember, you are not here to live as a mirror of what everyone else wants. You are here to live truthfully. When you protect your peace, you give others permission to do the same. And that, my friend, creates a ripple far greater than endless people-pleasing ever could. So don't sacrifice your peace just to keep the world around you comfortable. Peace is sacred. It's your anchor. And once you claim it, you'll notice you have more to give, not less. Because from a heart at peace flows the deepest compassion. 6. Choose inner growth over seeking approval. Have you ever noticed how much of our lives are spent chasing approval? From the time we were kids, we were told, get good grades, so the teacher praises you. Be polite, so people like you. Work hard, so your boss notices. And little by little, without even realizing it, we start living as if our worth depends on the applause of others. But here's the problem. That applause never lasts. It's sweet for a moment, then it fades. And suddenly, we're running again hungry for the next compliment, the next nod, the next little sign that says, yes, you're enough. I've been there. And maybe you've felt it too. It's exhausting. Because the moment people disapprove, or worse, stay silent, we feel like we've lost our value. But the Buddha's wisdom points us in a different direction. He reminds us, true peace, true strength, true joy, they're born from within. Instead of chasing recognition, what if we turned inward? What if we nourished the qualities that no one can take away from us? Patience, compassion, mindfulness, wisdom. Think about it. When you practice patience, you carry calm into chaos. When you cultivate compassion, you bring warmth into coldness. When you live with mindfulness, you create peace in a restless world. No applause is needed for these things, because their reward is already alive within you. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who worked tirelessly, always pushing himself, always waiting for his boss to finally say, "Well done." He got the raise, the recognition, even the respect. But each time, the satisfaction lasted only a few days before the emptiness returned. One day, he sat with a Buddhist monk, pouring out his frustration. The monk simply smiled and said, "When you grow a tree, do you ask the birds to clap for it?" The man shook his head. "Exactly," the monk continued. "The tree grows in silence. Its strength comes not from applause, but from its roots." That moment changed him. And maybe it can change you too. Because when you start choosing inner growth over outer approval, something shifts. Suddenly, criticism doesn't crush you. Praise doesn't inflate you. You become steady, like that tree, rooted in your own being. And isn't that what we all long for? Not a life that sways with every opinion, but a life grounded in truth. The Buddha's teaching is clear. Develop your mind. Cultivate your heart. Walk the path of awareness. That's where lasting fulfillment is found. So ask yourself, am I living for the world's applause or for my soul's growth? And if the answer is the first one, maybe it's time to pause, to breathe, and to turn inward. Because here's the beauty. When you grow inside, when you nurture patience, compassion, and mindfulness, the world around you naturally transforms. Your presence speaks louder than recognition ever could. Your peace becomes a gift to others. Your growth becomes an inspiration without you needing to prove anything. So today, let this be your reminder. Choose inner growth. Choose the roots over the applause. Choose the silence of the tree that keeps growing, whether or not anyone notices. Because when you do, you'll find a strength, a peace, a joy that no one can take away. And that, my friend, is the freedom the Buddha wanted us to discover. 7. Learn to master your mind. Let me ask you something. How often do you feel like your own mind is working against you? You want peace, but instead, your thoughts run wild, dragging you into anger, worry, or endless what-ifs. You want happiness, but the mind whispers doubts, fears, comparisons. And before you know it, the outside world feels overwhelming, even when nothing around you has really changed. The truth is, most of our suffering doesn't come from life itself. It comes from the way our mind reacts to life. Think about it. Two people can face the same challenge, losing a job, going through rejection, or dealing with uncertainty. One collapses under the weight of it. The other, somehow, stays calm, even finds strength in the storm. The difference isn't the situation. It's the state of the mind. I used to believe that if I could just fix the outside, earn more money, solve every problem, avoid mistakes, then peace would finally come. But the Buddha's teaching turned that belief upside down. He taught, "We are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. The mind is both the source of our suffering and the key to our freedom." So here's the question. How do we learn to master it? Not by fighting every thought, not by forcing the mind to be silent, but by training it, just like a wild horse slowly becomes gentle when cared for with patience. And that's where mindfulness and meditation come in. When you sit, even for a few minutes, simply watching the breath, you begin to notice something powerful. You're not your thoughts. You're the observer of your thoughts. And the moment you realize that, a small space opens. A space where anger can arise, but you don't have to feed it. Where anxiety shows up, but you don't let it take over. Where craving appears, but you can let it pass, like a cloud drifting across the sky. This space is freedom. Let me give you a picture. There's a story of a monk who was insulted by a villager day after day. Instead of reacting with anger, the monk simply listened in silence, then walked away. One disciple asked him, "Why don't you defend yourself?" The monk replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, who does it belong to?" The disciple said, "Well, it stays with the one who offered it." The monk smiled. Exactly. Anger is the same. That's the power of mastering the mind. Instead of being dragged into every storm, you stand like a mountain, steady, unshaken, free. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. The mind has been running the show for years, maybe decades. But with practice, with gentle training, it changes. One breath at a time. One moment of awareness at a time. And slowly, something incredible happens. The same world that once felt heavy begins to feel lighter. The same challenges that once broke you now reveal lessons. The same restless nights turn into quiet moments of peace. Because freedom isn't found in controlling everything outside. It's found in mastering what's inside. So today, I want you to remember this. The world will always bring waves. But your mind can learn to be the ocean, vast, calm, and steady. And when you master your mind, no one and nothing can take away your peace. Summary and conclusion. So here we are, at the end of this journey. If you've been listening closely, you might remember how we started with that question. Why does peace often feel so far away, even when we try so hard to reach it? The truth is, peace was never out there, waiting to be found. It has always been inside of you, like a quiet flame just waiting for you to stop and notice. Think about it when you shifted your morning routine. When you chose awareness over autopilot, didn't you feel a different energy? Maybe just a spark, a tiny sense of lightness. That's where it begins. The Buddha taught that our mind is the source of both suffering and liberation. And mornings, those first moments of the day, are like the seedbed of your mind. Whatever you plant there will grow throughout your day. Let's tie it all together. When you start by calming your breath, you're telling your nervous system, you are safe. That simple act already softens the weight you carry. When you add gratitude, you shift the lens from what's missing to what's here. Suddenly, life feels a little less heavy, a little more full. And when you remind yourself that everything changes, that even the pain you feel is not permanent, you gain freedom. You no longer need to fight against the river. You can float with it. I know it sounds simple, maybe even too simple, but sometimes the deepest wisdom is like water, clear, ordinary, yet essential. Years ago, I struggled with anxiety that consumed my mornings. I would wake up already exhausted, already bracing myself for battles that hadn't even happened. But when I began to practice just one of these habits, just pausing to breathe before touching my phone, I noticed my day didn't control me anymore. I began to feel space inside my mind. And from that space, peace quietly entered. And isn't that what we all long for? Not the absence of problems, but the presence of clarity. Not a perfect life, but a peaceful heart to walk through an imperfect world. Maybe you're wondering, but what if tomorrow I fall back into old habits? That's okay. That's part of the practice. Peace isn't about perfection. It's about returning again and again to what you know brings you home. Each morning is a new chance. Each sunrise whispers, "Try again today." So here's the thought I want to leave you with. What if your mornings became less about rushing and more about remembering? Remembering who you are beneath the noise. Remembering that the present moment is always enough. And remembering that peace isn't something you chase, it's something you create, moment by moment, breath by breath. Now, let me ask you, have you ever seen someone close to you live their life, always rushing, always carrying invisible weight, never really present? If this video reminded you of them, maybe share it with them. Sometimes, the smallest reminder can change the way someone begins their day. And if this message touched something inside you, maybe you'll want to come back here tomorrow and the day after that. We'll keep walking this path together, uncovering more ways to live with Buddhist wisdom in our daily lives. Who knows, maybe the next story will hold exactly the answer you've been searching for. So, until then, breathe gently, walk slowly, and let your mornings be the doorway to peace.